Luke Sparke, you are the writer-director of Red Billabong.
Yes, I am.
Describe Red Billabong to us, please.
Describe Red Billabong. It's a fun, I tried to make it a fun action popcorn adventure film for Australia. It's a love letter to Australia. It's a love letter to Australian sort of cinema of the 80s. And it's a love letter to my favourite genre, which is like the 80s, 90s, Alien, Predator, Independence Day, where it's a big ensemble cast, where everyone gets a little moment to have their moment, in the film with a big, huge ending. And that's the sort of movies I get to see in the movie. So I just wanted to make it like that.
So basically, this is a monster movie set in the country.
Yeah.
In the Australian rural place where people normally go to picnic and go to run farms and so on. You've got a large beastie running around. Now, so just nail for me again, just unpack your inspirations for this film, the filmmakers that you like, the movies that you're referencing in this film.
Well, look, I'm a huge fan, obviously, of people. I grew up in the 1980s, so I'm a huge fan of people like Spielberg, James Cameron, George Lucas, all those cliche ones that every director always says that it's influenced them, and it really influenced me. So I wanted to make something like those movies I went to as a kid. Aliens, Predator, Independence Day, just make just a fun action thrill ride, because Australia has a really good voice when it comes to character-driven pieces, and it's really great to see our voice out there on the international stage getting bigger with films like Holding the Man and really great drama, and I love those movies. I just wanted to offset some of those with a little bit more, inject a bit of fun into Australian cinema and for audiences.
And you referenced Australian exploitation films specifically from the 1970s and 1980s.
Yep.
How old are you?
I'm 31.
So obviously way too young to know these movies.
I grew up with them on beta, my family and my father and my mum, they love all that stuff. They were huge fans of those. So I grew up watching Razorback, and all the Crocodile Dundee, all on beta, and they just stayed with me,
Razorback was the film that I thought of most while watching this. This is the 1984 Russell Mulcahy film about a large pig in the outback. That was a specific reference for you?
It wasn't a huge reference. I remember watching it as a kid. I remember having the beta cover. It's just little glimpses. I watched it again recently, and it's for a 1980s movie, it's good. But obviously, in this day and age, it doesn't. It has it's set very much in the 80s. So it wasn't a huge reference for me. Again, for me, it's more the American movies that I referenced a lot.
And how hard was it to make this movie?
Oh, look, it's a huge, any filmmaker knows, especially in Australia, to get a movie up off the ground is a huge undertaking. This film was financed all independently by myself and all these great investors, just literally Aussie people that just loved what I was trying to do. So it's just hard-working Aussies that gave me cash to do this movie. So to do all that and then make a film in 5 weeks that is like an action movie is crazy. So every day was a struggle, even up until last night was just everything. You're always at it. Time's always against you, but it always all come together. And then you throw in this big visual effects monster that's like one of Australia's first huge CGI sort of things, and that puts a whole other level on it. So it's a bit of fun.
Yes, it is the first Australian CGI rendered
monster
beastie.
Yeah.
I was thinking of Welcome to Whoop Whoop, but no, that was an actual kangaroo that they simply shot to make it look giant.
Yeah.
Can you tell me about that segment of the film? Because, Luke, as you know, you can tease the audience as much as you like with little cutaway shots and implied shots about what it is and how big it is and so on. But at the end of the day, you have to deliver. I want to know how much that preyed on your mind and what you think of the final result.
Yeah, well, the final result that people see in the cinema on the 25th is going to be even better than the version you saw, because independent film, we're still working on it right until the very end, but most of him is there. So obviously I really wanted to make sure that you have to sort of have the promise of the premise when people go to see these movies. You have to, as you said, you have to make sure people, and that's the reason why our marketing campaign sort of shifted a little bit. We sort of wanted to do a more J.J. Abrams Cloverfield where we don't show anything of the monster. But then the feedback was, oh, it's an Australian film. If there's nothing in the trailer, there probably will be nothing in this movie. There'll probably be a big joke and it's not a monster at all. So I changed the sort of marketing to put the monster on the poster to say, and put 3 shots of him in the trailer to say, hey, look, there is a monster, so come and see this movie. So that was always on my mind, because to go out there and say it, as you said, say there's a big monster, you have to bring it. And fortunately enough, we had a lot of good CGI artists on this. Everyone's gone to great lengths to make this look as good as it possibly can within our budget for an Australian movie. And I think it's turned out really well. The monster's great.
What was the budget on this film? If you can
It
reveal?
was just hovering on $2 million.
That's remarkable.
Which is quite okay for an Australian movie. A lot of movies are made for a lot less in Australia, but when you add in an action and special effects, you're looking at movies like Suicide Squad and Thor, who were made on $250 million. That's it's incomprehensible.
And how long in the preparation and the writing of this movie?
I started writing this back in 2007, so it's coming up to like almost 9-10 years. To be living in this world of Red Billabong, and then the prep stage was a couple of months, a lot of prep, and then since then we've had a year to get the monster, looking, finding more money and getting it to them, and sort of all independently made. So I've sort of had to do it in sections to take it to my investors to say, this is how he looks now, and this is how he looks now, and then get more and more and more off just ordinary Australian people that just seem to like it. They just think that they want to go see this movie in cinema as well. And most of them were here last night, all the investors, and they all loved it, and the audience loved it last night, so it was a great time.
So can you just tell me just a little bit about that process? You're making a movie, a monster movie, and you're also going to investors while you're making the movie and asking for more money on the basis of how it's going to look, on the basis of storyboards. Can you just unpack that for us a bit? Tell us a bit about the hard reality of that part of the filmmaking.
Yeah, well, look, it's the side that no one really wants to talk about, obviously, because it's no one wants to talk about money. But it's hugely hard, especially when it's all on my shoulders, which is great freedom for a director to be able to have like no studio, no heads, nothing on my back. I could just literally on set. It was great to work with the actors and just make sure that they were happy and make the characters really meld together and things. But then the other side of the coin, going home at night, is just that constant world of showing people up to date footage, because we, as I said, we did it in sections, so we had money to shoot it, and then once that shoot was over, it was like, okay, now let's go get money to keep going. And there's things like crowdfunding these days online. I didn't want to go that route with this sort of movie because not that it has a stigma, but I think people sort of then go, oh, it's a crowdfunded movie, where I wanted this to come out and be like, hey, look, it's a big movie for what it is. We have a lot of tricks to make it look a bit bigger than what it actually is. So to do that and keep the investors happy, obviously I had to go and get sales agents for international sales. The international crowd loves this movie. It's already sold to Japan, sold to Indonesia and Vietnam, so it's getting cinema release over there within the next couple of weeks, going to October. And then we're going to sell it to America and Europe. So and again, it's a love letter to Australia, and I think the international audiences can see that it's dripping with Australia, but also keeping the ochreish out of it, because I didn't want the characters to speak with that Australian accent that we all sort of play up in movies and TV shows sometimes, because it's not 1970 anymore. We don't talk like that. We're a multicultural nation. So I just wrote it as I talk to my friends down at the pub, and no one talks like that.
And at the same time, we're much more aware and much more respectful of Indigenous culture,
Exactly.
which you've weaved into this story. What was it like basically inventing an Indigenous legend for the film? Do you have to get permission? Do you base it on research? How do you come up with that? And do you have to be sensitive about that sort of thing?
Of course. I was hugely sensitive to that whole process. I reached out early on to sort of show where I was heading with this, and the feedback from particular parties was, as long as you don't show particular names and particular, referencing the actual Dreamtime look of this particular creature, do your own thing, which I was happy to do because I like doing my own thing and I wanted to make it my own story. And there's so many different versions of this particular creature around, different tribes, white settlers, Europeans, all the way up to the 1970s, even sightings and reports of this particular creature. So it's great to get all those together and weave it in something really important, and then also make the Indigenous side come out where he basically is a superhero. The person you think that isn't going to be anything turns out that he's the hero of the movie. And there was no way I was going to let a white European person be the hero when you've got such a rich culture of that in there.
Just as a side question, was there a version of this monster that you were designing where it hopped?
No.
Okay, that's good.
No, that's the thing everyone goes to. A lot of people said to me, Dot and the kangaroo, we thought it'd give me some furry little creature, and straight away my very first sketch was very scary, very terrifying, because I wanted to make it, it's in a way the stories that they're told throughout their dream time and then into their culture, and even the Western settlers, it was very devilish, and it almost has a bit of like Christianity thrown in there. It's very interesting looking at the cultures. There's always good spirits and bad spirits, and always fighting each other. So it was very interesting to have that and play with that. And I really wanted him to cut a figure of a very sort of not cliche, but a very sort of typical monster you would think of when you think of a big monster, and he's got these big arms and big head, and he just cuts this sort of certain figure. I can see that. We had many different versions where the mouths were all different and really crazy stuff, and but I'm really happy with the way it turned out.
Now, do you think you might have overused the soundtrack in this movie? There's a lot of music, and there's a lot of mood music as well. And there were points where I thought you could have pulled back a little bit on that. Maybe the rock and roll has its place, but when they're out there alone with all the trees, did you need all that mood music?
I think so. Again, I just wanted to make a big American popcorn film, so I just told the guys to go big or go home. So, yeah.
Now, you end the film with a rather bold statement that the Bunyan will be back. What's that about? Do you already have a sequel in the can?
If this film goes well, yeah, I'd love to keep telling the story of this. I feel like it's a corner of the market here. So there's lots of other mythological creatures out there.
Yeah, but you don't know, do you? So what does that statement mean at the end?
There's different versions. I've been offered comic book versions of continuing stories along. So there's lots of ways and means to get out there in this day and age, and just to have a bit of a wink, wink, nudge, nudge at the audience. Just have a bit of fun, like James Bond.
Are you deliberately showing a level of confidence that you don't see often in the film industry? Because it's nice to see. Maybe. Whether it comes off or not, I like the balls.
Yeah. Well, look, I think I'm passionate enough that the distributors and that asked me if I have a 5-page treatment for a sequel, because the tracking and the buzz is quite good about this film. So I put pen to paper and gave it to them, and then at the end of it, I thought, I'm pretty passionate about a sequel, so maybe I just do this one, just say screw it, and we'll make it no matter what.
Okay. Now it's sold, you said, going through them again, Japan,
Asia, Vietnam, Indonesia, so all through that so far.
So the Asian quadrant.
Yeah.
The Asian,
yep.
And you're still looking for America and Britain.
We showed an early version at Cannes this year. Back in May, a very early version.
How'd it go?
And really well. And off that, we've got about 7 buyers in the US, 6 buyers in the UK, and they're waiting for us to bring the film over to there and do a screening of the finished version. So I'll be heading over there in a few weeks and get them all together, and then I'm sure one of them will buy it.
Okay, now just for the record, this film is a week away from release in Australia,
yes.
And you say you're still working on it?
As of today, I think it's done.
Okay.
As of today, I'm pretty sure it's done. The version that I'm getting today will be the finished version when I go back to Brisbane. Okay.
So Luke, you want to make big commercial crowd-pleasing films?
Yes. I think that's a pretty accurate statement.
And I want just your perception of the Australian film industry and the type of Australian films that you've grown up with, given that you're a generation, possibly 2 generations behind me.
Right.
I've seen all the crap. I sat through all that stuff.
Uh-huh.
As a young man growing up and as a young filmmaker growing up, what has been your perception of Australian cinema that has made you want to make films like this?
Okay, it's a hard question. I don't want to step on any toes. But look, like I said, I'm a huge blockbuster fan. So really Australian cinema to me, I probably don't go as much as I should. To me, it's, Crocodile Dundee, Mad Max is basically, Mad Max 2 is my ultimate Australian film. I think it's awesome because it's so energetic, so fast, so fun. So to me, I haven't really been to an Australian movie in a long time. And I don't know what that says about the state of me or the state of the film industry. I know we've made a lot of movies that people have loved, Dressmaker and everything else, so great to see some of that going on. But I think the Australia film industry, we've all known for a while that needs, something needs to happen. It's going well, but I'd like to see something more happen. We need to maybe help with the distribution market, help to get more people to see Australian films because they're good. Sometimes they can't find an audience, and that's not the film's fault. That's also a lot of other factors that go into it. For me, the whole journey, that's probably been the most eye-opening to see that once you've even made the film, that a lot of the cinemas are so gun-shy to show an Australian film because they're just worried that it's just not going to make.
Is it happening with your film?
Yeah. Or even now, we're still trying to book screens.
I actually wanted to know how it's going in terms of marketing.
Yeah,
that has been my ongoing complaint about Aussie films.
Yeah.
They come out, they're good, and they show on 3 screens and they go in a week.
Yeah. Well, luckily so far we're opening on close to 100 screens. So
100 screens.
Hopefully, that's what we're looking at, and hopefully expand on that. So I'm hoping we get a good word of mouth. Our campaign online's been really great. We've done a really good social media campaign, which is this day and age is the biggest thing you can do. So yeah, I hope Australian films sort of, if this goes well, I hope people take my ideas and follow suit, and I'm happy to give them away because Australia needs more films, and the audience needs to get behind something like this to make more action films in Australia, and then we can start maybe being like Korea and other countries that can make good action films for Koreans, and the Koreans go and see it, they make more. Where we need to make more films so Australia goes and sees it to make more films for Australians.
I have something called the Shembury Challenge.
Okay.
And whenever I speak to independent filmmakers,
Yep.
I like to just put them in a scenario
Okay.
and see how they react.
Right.
And I'm very keen, especially to subject you to it. So, are you in a playful frame of mind?
Sure.
Okay. I'm a big Hollywood studio exec, and I've seen your film and really, really like it a lot. Terrific. I actually would like to give you, I want to distribute it across America. I want to give it 2,000-3,000 cinemas. I want to put you on the talk show circuit. I want to make stars of some of the actors, especially some of the actresses who are very attractive. We're American, we like that. But I want to give you some money to reshoot the ending so that you actually have the Bunyip leave the cave or the lair or wherever it is and actually go stomping through the town. So I want to see some big, spectacular action scenes where he's just ripping the town apart. We'll give you the money for that. But you do need to change it. And one of the changes is you kill the Indigenous actor, you kill the Indigenous hero. So that's a condition that we want to see. What do you say to that? Or what's your counter to that?
I would say that the Indigenous part's a deal breaker. I actually had that option thrown at me from America. Actually, they said that you should have him die early and have the white guy become the hero.
They didn't say that.
Yeah. So I said, well, that's not for me. Thank you very much.
Okay.
So the deal breaker would be that.
Okay. We'll forget that. We'll have him live. But would you agree to reshoot the ending to have that extended ending? So keep him alive. We might injure him, so maybe he can come back in the sequel.
Okay.
As I said. But
Yeah.
how would you take that as a deal?
Okay, I love the film as it is now, but I would probably take the money and make him stomp through a town, because that is actually in my sequel treatment, where I want to make him go into a town and, stomp through a town. So I would be happy with that.